What's up, guys? It is the Thursday NFL Line Movement Show. We have a Thursday night game this week. We'll be talking about Carolina at Atlanta, as well as running through this full slate here. I brought on the heavy hitters, the man that knows the slate inside and out, Joe Holka, the man behind the bets. He's tracking the sharp money. It is Matt LaMarca. How we doing, Matt?
Doing good. Heavy hitters hit home a little too hard for me. That's a literal and a figurative term, I guess, for me these days.
There you go. Hey, Joe, how are you feeling?
I'm good, man. It's kind of nice because I know you guys have been just like deep in the trenches for the showdown slate for like at least an hour at this point. I've been like frantically trying to get an interview up. We actually just interviewed Steven Stamkos from the Stanley Cup champion, Tampa Bay Lightning. So that was really cool. If any hockey fans out there, make sure and check out that video. That was a big get for us, and it basically burned my entire day today. So I'm going to be relying on you guys a little bit more than normal. Not that that's, I guess, anything new, but Thursday in particular is one that I'm a little bit light on research-wise. So I'll give you some fresh eyes today. How's that?
There we go. Sounds good. We got Wayne Casey in the chat. Is this a first Thursday night show? No, man. We are here every single Thursday night, an hour before kickoff. We talk island game stuff. We talk through the slate. So yes, every Thursday. And while we're doing line movement show plugs, if you guys didn't check out the Tilt Space, we did a late Sunday night edition. And boy, did it get tilty. We had some beverages. It was a great time. There's a highlight reel up on the line movement Twitter feed. If you want to check that out, you guys should be joining us every Sunday. We'll be back to our normal time at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. Always fun. Let's talk about this game, Carolina at Atlanta. It looks like the spread is down to Carolina -2 after opening up, I want to say, at 2.5, over under 51.5. What do you got for me, Matt?
Yeah, I'm even seeing the consensus now down to 1.5 across most of the industry. Betting numbers here are pretty split. Panthers have a slight edge in terms of ticket count and money count, but nothing overwhelming. So really, this just tells me that there has been some sharp activity on the Panthers. We've tracked a couple of steam moves here on Carolina at 2. So yeah, that's why it dropped to 1.5. It seems like the pros are leaning towards the Panthers in this one.
Yeah, that's good to hear. We switched up our strategy for the super contest. We are slipping a little bit, and we noticed that the sharps and the players in general aren't betting the Thursday night game because it means you have to get in all of your picks by Thursday. But that game seems a little underowned. So we went ahead and grabbed Carolina in this one. Joe, are you feeling good about that? And any other thoughts on this game?
No, I like that overall. I know we're kind of a dog to win that at some point. Obviously, it's a winner take all, so it's the time to start taking chances in that one. So I like the idea of getting a game that we really like. We like the Carolina side quite a bit in this game, but we're probably going to be one of the only teams that has them. So I think that's a good move by us, even though it is only week 8. We got to give ourselves a chance, right? So I like that. I think this week, or at least this game in particular, from a DFS perspective, I don't think any of us are scared to go back to Mike Davis. He's probably going to be one of the most popular captains tonight, right? He's still actually a reasonable price. I was just looking at this in comparison to even like Calvin Ridley, who seems pretty expensive. I think even the quarterbacks, of course, but 8,800 for Mike Davis seems like just a smash play on the spot against Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Davis has been a guy that I've just been going to week after week because he's been underpriced in DFS relative to his role. It's hard to know what the public is going to think about him tonight. On the main slate last week, no one wanted to touch him just because he was coming off of one slow week. I think his role is still pretty good. I know they're mixing in Curtis Samuel a little bit more. Does that concern you at all, Matt, about him being a true or fake bell cow in this spot?
No, I'm not concerned. I mean, Davis still played on the vast majority of the snaps. He's going to get the work in the passing game. Atlanta's not as bad against the run and against running backs as you might think. Their biggest struggles have come, through the air to players on the outside. But Davis for sure it looks way too cheap at 8,800 on DraftKings. I mean, to just put it in perspective, he is the most expensive player on the FanDuel single game format, and he is the 6th most expensive player on DraftKings.
Yeah, I know some people in the chat are talking about the weather that has been a little bit of an issue. There's ugly weather. I'm here on the East Coast as well. It's been raining. This is obviously in Carolina. There's chance for some 10-mile-per-hour winds, it looks like. It sounds like there might be some gusts later, but as of now, the total has not dropped too much, if
It's
at all.
gone up, to be
Oh,
honest.
it's gone up. So
Interesting.
to me, that means the bettors aren't afraid. And normally we can look at that money as an indicator of how bad this weather is. So I'm not adjusting anything based on weather, but I guess keep an eye on it. The other thing I thought would be interesting to mention. So I was building my showdown lineups earlier, and generally how it shakes out on DraftKings is you have 6 guys, and the builds generally funnel to 3-3. The balance builds, that's how people who hand build normally do it. And so to get leverage, it's generally 4-2 and 5-1 builds. But I was noticing in the optimal lineups, because of the underpriced Panthers players, like LaMarca was saying, you're getting a ton of 5-1 Panthers, 4-2 Panthers. So I actually think the contrarian angle here is to try to get in more Falcons into your builds, even though they're expensive. And you probably have to leave some salary on the table to do that. But I would make sure that you're not ending up too heavy on Carolina, as I believe that's going to be the chalky construction.
Interesting. Do you guys have any cheaper options on Atlanta? Because it seems like some of the pricing is tough. I know you guys mentioned before we went on Brian Hill potentially, because he's only 2,200. Is he like the best guy, I guess, all the way down there? Even Russell Gage is 4,200. He's someone that we would normally kind of get some salary saving ability from. But yeah, I'm with you. Even just looking at some of the best like point per dollar types of plays at the projections that I'm looking at, it seems like all Carolina guys. So I'm with you. Trying to go overweight on Atlanta seems like it'd be pretty sharp.
Yeah, and I'm with you too on Brian Hill looking like the best pump play down in that range. I think you could also, I mean, I like him because he's on Atlanta as well. I think you could also mess around with Ito Smith. I think Brian Hill has a better chance for a big play. Ito Smith might have a chance to vulture a touchdown. And so, we know how these showdown slates go, depending on the slate size, the contest you're playing. Like, you're going to need to get off the board a little bit here. So I think you can mix in some chalk and then try to get maybe a cheap Falcon guy would be a good way to do it. LaMarca, any other things on this slate that are interesting for you?
Yeah, I think that the value plays are just horrendous this week. Like, I am really struggling. I love Gage at 4,200. I think I'm hoping that people might look at his snap count from last week. He played on just 24 of 75 snaps for the Falcons and say, oh, he's losing his role. But he got hurt. He left that game in the first half and ended up coming back. And in his 24 snaps, he saw 7 targets and caught 6 passes. So he is still very much the number 3 receiver for the Falcons. I've honestly experimented with some builds where he's at captain to try and just give myself maximum savings to pay up at the other positions. But it's after Gage, I think it gets really gross. You can look at the kickers maybe, but the kickers don't have a ton of correlation if you want to stack up a particular side. Maybe one of the defenses has some value. So I'm really kind of stuck as to what to do after Russell Gage.
And I misspoke here. I missed this. Ito Smith is actually inactive, which actually is going to boost Brian Hill's projection a decent bit. I definitely have some lineups that I will be adjusting on the fly here because I did miss that. So thank you, chat. No More Snowflakes, Tyler, for pointing that out. Ito Smith, I think that's actually pretty significant, as it makes Brian Hill now probably the best value play without a shadow of a doubt on this slate.
I mean, Ito Smith played 3 snaps last week.
Yeah.
So it's not like Hill is going to get an extra like 10% workload or something like that. I agree Hill has appeal. I just don't know if I would call him a slam dunk.
Yeah, no. He's definitely still a low probability play, but I do think on these showdown slates at those cheap price points that even shifting 2 to 3 touches his way, can meaningfully affect things. But yeah, I'm with you. He's still not a slam dunk. But again, when I watch them, Brian Hill looks way more explosive to me than Todd Gurley.
100%.
But that's not hard to do. That's a low threshold to clear. So yeah, I think that's definitely interesting here. I mean, the nice thing about Carolina, as usual, is they're so concentrated with DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, Mike Davis, that they're going to see so much of that production. So I think if you're looking for leverage, it is probably playing one of these Atlanta receivers as your captain. I don't think a lot of people are going to get to Calvin Ridley in Julio captains, but no one needs to be told that those guys have the ceiling to break the slate.
Man, it's hard to bring. I was trying to build a Calvin Ridley team right now with captain. It's hard unless you want to go like really thin. Even if you play Brian Hill and you're trying to go like a 4-2 Atlanta stack to be a little bit different. If you're trying to play like Mike Davis and Teddy Bridgewater for Carolina, like you're basically at like Olamide Zaccheaus or Quadre Olson as like that sixth guy in your lineup. That's kind of rough, man. I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull the trigger on this.
I just built a Ridley captain lineup that I like.
Yeah.
A 4-2.
Interesting.
But I couldn't get to Bridgewater.
Got it. That was probably the hang up on mine then.
All right. I am incredibly shook. I'm staring at a bunch of Ito Smith lineups that had made it in, and we will get through. I will give you my attention. I will be the host. I will move us along while making sure I'm not getting it in dead here with these lineups. All right. Let's is there anything else with this game that we need to touch on before we start walking the slate? I know we want to try to hit all the games like we did last week.
I guess my biggest question for you guys is, outside of Mike Davis, who do we think is going to be the most popular captain? Is he going to be one of the quarterbacks at that point?
I would think Bridgewater.
Okay. Interesting. I'm always trying to build like the most like anti-fragile team for these and just like try and go the opposite of what everyone's talking about, because I think it's pretty clear where the value is going to be. Like you said, it's not easy to build an Atlanta-based stack right now, so I'm going to try and make it work. It's probably why my showdown lineups go so terribly on Thursdays, because I build this live.
Pete did mention Calvin Ridley. I think that is the best play on the slate. He has literally the best matchup in week 8, according to Pro Football Focus, not just in this game, the entire slate, against Troy Pride Jr., who I would be lying if I had said that I had heard of before today. So I think getting up to Ridley, especially if he's not going to be super high owned, is like kind of mandatory for me now, thinking it out.
Yeah, I think everyone's going to end up with a ton of Mike Davis captain and Calvin Ridley. People are just not going to feel comfortable with the kind of pump plays they're going to make with Calvin Ridley captain. And Joe, I think if you want the most possible contrarian build, I think it's a 5-1 Atlanta side. Maybe you eat the chalk with Mike Davis. They just control it on the ground, and you just get that Atlanta onslaught coming back. That sounds pretty hot if you can make that fit. All right, let's start walking the slate here. Let's open up with Indianapolis at Detroit. We got Indy. Am I reading this right? Is Indy a 3-point road favorite, LaMarca?
2.5 now. Well, it's fluctuating. So this, I noticed this when I was writing up the slate yesterday. Basically, every time this line gets to 3, the sharps are hitting Detroit. And then every time it drops down to 2.5, they're taking the Colts. So I think that this is a line that's going to vary book to book all the way up to kickoff. You can find a lot of 3s out there, but you can also find a lot of 2.5s. So I am going to stick with my unbased love for the Colts. I don't know why I can't quit them, but I can't. Detroit, to me, like, they have looked much better since getting Kenny Golladay back. They're 3-1 over their last 4 games, but they haven't exactly played a brutal schedule. You know, they beat the Cardinals, they beat the Jaguars, and they stole a victory last week against the Falcons. And the only definitively good team that they have played during that stretch is the Saints, and the Saints kind of blew their doors off. So I think Indy, coming off of a bye, you know, I bring this trend up on our Tuesday show all the time. Favorites coming off of a bye have historically crushed, and Indy certainly qualifies as a 3-point road favorite. So maybe this Indy team is a fraud. Their schedule has just been the biggest cupcake to start that I've ever seen, but I'm buying them just with the week off.
Joe, we have this narrative in fantasy. We have these talented rookie running backs. We want them to get more touches. They're in these committees, and then they go on the bye week, and the coaches come to their senses, and we emerge from the bye week, and Jonathan Taylor gets 30 touches. Do you buy it?
There's 2 of those guys in this game, Pete. I thought you were teeing me up for the Swift call here.
No, I tee myself up for the Swift call. I'm the only one who touts him.
Fair enough. You're the only one that touts him, but I guess not the only one that plays him after last week. So I think that there's, man, this game, I don't like this game much at all. I think that there's like an argument for going super cheap with someone like Marcus Johnson at wide receiver. Jonathan Taylor at 6,600. I'm definitely trying to get to a guy like Kareem Hunt in that range anyway, who I think has a higher ceiling, definitely a higher touch floor. But yeah, the narrative, I guess, surrounding Jonathan Taylor, I would prefer that, I guess, him be like sub 10% owned if I wanted to go anywhere near this game. I don't think he's going to be there. I think he's probably going to be closer to like 10 to 12%. So a little bit less interested in that. Really tough matchup overall if you wanted to even go to the passing game for Detroit. I think it's a pretty tough spot in general for that side of the offense. Kenny Golladay and Marvin Jones, the Colts are 12th in success rate allowed to wide receivers on defense. It gets even worse for a guy like TJ Hawkinson. Indy is 2nd in success rate allowed to tight ends this year. So I don't know if there's really a lot to like on the Detroit side of the ball. I understand if you wanted to go to the running back for the Colts, but I think this game is mostly a stay away for me. I don't like really anyone in this game.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a full-on stay away for me. I do agree. It's probably not a game I'm trying to stack up. I do think Kenny Golladay is still underpriced relative to his ceiling there at 6,600. There are some gross plays that you could make here with these older dusty vets and T.Y. Hilton and Marvin Jones. I mean, it's just it comes to that thing of like, are they truly done? Or does the volume finally catch up to them? And, T.Y. Hilton in the air yards by low model, Detroit's corners haven't been anything special. It sets up as a good spot, but it's hard. It's like, are these guys Zach Ertz and like the wheels just completely come off? Or are they like AJ Green where they keep getting force fed volume to the point where like some big games are going to come? Do you have a lean on that, LaMarca?
I'm just playing Marcus Johnson at 3K if I'm
Oh,
going
I like that
this
call.
price range. Joe mentioned it's a pure punt, right? He's 3K, but he had 8 targets last week, racked up over 100 yards. That is an interesting game for the Colts because they were trailing early. They probably threw the ball more than they would like to if the game script, goes in their favor. But Johnson's interesting, right? He was an undrafted free agent, did very, very little in college at Texas, but he's fast, 4.4, 4.40. His athletic measurables look pretty good. So I think he's an interesting guy if you want to, punt at the wide receiver position this week.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. The chat also mentioning Trey Burton, who I think is a solid play as well at tight end. I think in a normal week, he might catch a little bit more ownership, but I think coming off the bye, people might just kind of forget that his role had really increased there to where he is now the tight end one there over Jack Doyle. So yeah, I think that's interesting. And yeah, this is a game I could see myself having some secondary correlations in this game, like a DeAndre Swift and, a Marcus Johnson or a Kenny Golladay with Jonathan Taylor kind of thing. So I think you want to pick your spots here, but not get too crazy. Let's move on here to this next game. We have Green Bay on the road, at home in Minnesota. It sounds like Aaron Jones isn't going to play. The Green Bay staff is notoriously conservative with this. He's still dealing with that calf stuff. They're on the record saying like, we're not going to rush him back and risk losing him. So I'm leaning toward Jones not playing. On the flip side, it sounds like Dalvin Cook will play. That said, he hasn't practiced. I know Joe is our boots on the ground, so we can get his thoughts there. But first, LaMarca here, Green Bay 6.5 home favorites, divisional matchup, 51.5 over under. What do you like here?
Yeah, so this is an interesting game. I was all over Green Bay, and I still like Green Bay quite a bit, just because Aaron Rodgers is historically really good as a home favorite. He is 2-0 in that situation this season, 51-29-3 overall. So that's a 24% return on investment if you just backed him as a home favorite every time. That said, it does look like the Sharps have a lean on the Vikings. They're getting a slight edge in terms of dollars compared to bet tickets. So the spread has also dipped from 6.5 or 7 to 6 in some places. So the Vikings are getting some love here. And if you look at their results since they moved Justin Jefferson into the starting lineup, it is pretty easy to see why. They're only 1-3 over that time frame, but they lost to the Seahawks by a point. They lost another game by just a point. I don't remember who that was to off the top of my head, but they've been significantly better since giving that guy, sort of a featured role in that offense. So the Sharps seem to think that 6 points is too many, but I am on the other side.
Joe, we got the chat asking us to project Jamal Williams ownership. His price has gone up 2,100 from last week at 6,100. We've seen the roll. It is a great bell cow roll. What do you think his ownership comes in at? And then also give us the boots on the ground Minnesota take.
I mean, my answer is I think his ownership's going to come in too low. We literally just did this with Mike Davis. Like, he came in and people were like hesitant to play him right, like in the beginning, and then they were like, "Oh no, I can't play him. He's 6,500. Can't play Mike Davis." And he continued to put it down our throat with 5 catches a game or more. So I like Jamal Williams a lot at 6,100. I think that he's still he's one of my favorite plays in this game. I think actually for just taking price into consideration, because a lot of these guys are expensive, man. Devontae Adams 8,800, Dalvin Cook 7,500. Thielen 72, Justin Jefferson even is 6,500. So that's one of the things that I was talking to Reeves about earlier this week is like, if you're truly going to stack up this game, like 2 not very good defenses, even though we know both these teams want to run the ball and I have some plays concerns, but if you wanted to, in theory, stack up this game because it's a reasonable total, like it's tough to get up to Thielen and Jefferson together because like it's a $700 savings to go to Jefferson. We haven't seen both of these guys really go crazy yet. Adam Thielen just has this insane red zone role. So if he ends up taking some of the touchdowns, I'm a little bit lower on Justin Jefferson than I have been. His price is at 6,500. I just don't think I see myself playing both these guys together. Dalvin Cook, I get nervous sometimes with these like groin injuries, these soft tissue injuries, because if this is a spot where like in theory, yeah, they'd probably want to run the ball a little bit more and slow things down. I don't know. Like the price is right, but we don't get really that much of an injury discount at all. So I'm a little bit hesitant with Cook. How much do you think he'll touch the ball in this spot? I guess maybe I'm just a little bit nervous about the groin.
Yeah, I mean, the way I think about it is they were already kind of cautious in not rushing him back. They had the bye. So my thought is if they make him active, like he's good to go. And, I guess Madison didn't do much in his, stand-in, but I still think that they're not going to rush him out there unless he can play. So I'll feel pretty confident unless we get a report that's like, hey, he's going to be on a snap count. But otherwise, I would be okay firing him up. And one thing that I just feel is one of the last kind of bankable edges in DFS is being willing to play these guys coming off of injury because people just get spooked and they want to prove it week before they do it. But in DFS, we're trying to get ahead of the curve. So I don't mind Dalvin Cook if he's good to go. Any other final thoughts here, LaMarca?
Yeah, play Devontae Adams. I don't care that he's 8,800. Just jam him in. If Aaron Jones is out again, like there's nothing stopping Devontae Adams from another 15 target performance. He probably doesn't get to, 47 DK points again, but I would take 30 at that salary every day of the week. And if you're looking for some value in this game, maybe Irv Smith at 3K. He was 10.5% owned last week. He put up a solid performance. His price isn't that much different. And yet I feel like he's going to be far less owned than he was last week.
Yeah, I like that call. Yeah. I
have one last question about this game because there's a lot of people talking about like the Green Bay defense, not really a defense that pressures the ball very well anyways. So they're 2,900. They're super cheap. I actually just like looking at it a little bit deeper, like Cousins, he's only 6K. Like this Green Bay defense can be beat deep, 31st in the league at defending the deep ball. So if you did want to go that route, I think Cousins at 6K is at least somewhat interesting. But what do you think about Green Bay since they're going to be a little bit chalky on the other side?
Yeah, well, the one thing that kind of concerns me about this game is intuitively you look at the total. We have the Minnesota blow-up game a couple weeks back, fresh in mind, Rodgers playing these shootouts. But Pat Thorman over at ETR actually has this as a pace down game, and that he said that's been pretty relative to their opponents that they've sped up. But the true identity of these teams is wanting to slow things down on the ground. And now we're outdoors in Green Bay. It's getting colder out there. So I could see this being a game that is maybe a little bit more of a fantasy disappointment than people would expect. So I think I'm more likely to play one-offs here. I think you can play Devontae Adams as a one-off. You can play Jamal Adams as a one-off, maybe Dalvin Cook in a receiver. But this isn't a game I'm probably going to be going heavy on, especially if it's going to catch a fair amount of ownership, which it looks like it will. All right, let's move on here to this Buffalo New England game. It's at Buffalo. They're 3.5-point favorites. We got Mike Leone in the chat, the resident Bills homer. He's the anti-homer, though. In the super contest, we did lock in New England here with the points. Uh-oh, LaMarca doesn't like it. LaMarca doesn't like it. Over under 53.5. Tell us why we got it in bad.
I think that this is a pretty much unprecedented situation for the Patriots. Like, I was all in on them last week as it being a bounce back spot. Like, Bill Belichick hasn't lost 3 games in a row in the regular season since 2002, except that he did. And he didn't just lose last week. They got buried. They got manhandled. People are looking at Buffalo's score versus the Jets. It was only an 18-10 final, but they outgained the Jets by like 250 yards in that contest. They were just really inefficient when they got into the red zone. So I think that game was a little bit fluky. I think the Bills deserve to win that game by more. And I also think that this is a statement spot for Buffalo. You know, New England has been the big brother of the AFC East for the past 2 decades. And Buffalo, I think, is ready to just come out and say, you've had your turn. This is our division now. So I'm playing a little narrative street with this one, but I think that the Bills are going to be all in on showing the Patriots that they are the best team in the East.
So Leone's already backtracking on this pick. He says we need to explain to LaMarca that we took it only because no one else would. Because I expressed similar hesitation to Leone in our chat, and he said no. I've been in the spreadsheets. The Patriots are a smash here. We have to play them, and I was like, all right, man, all right. So let's talk about this game for DFS here. I mean, Julian Edelman is now out. They're down to Damiere Byrd and whatever is left of N'Keal Harry at wide receiver. It's getting really gross out here. What are your thoughts on this game from a DFS perspective, Joe?
Man, I'm like frantically trying to figure out who would play in the slot in Edelman's spot. Is it going to be like Jacoby Myers at 3,500?
I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's at least reasonably interesting because that's kind of where you'd want to attack Buffalo, kind of in the short to intermediate slot area. Like I had some interest in Edelman earlier in the week. Cam Newton is so cheap. He is 5,700. So I understand that, like, yeah, he gets benched in that game recently, and then everyone wants to jump off the train that we were just on for a few weeks because of how much he was running. But like, if there's no Edelman, like he's probably just going to run even more. So, I mean, at 5,700, I have some interest in maybe like a naked Cam or a skinny stack with one of these really cheap wide receivers. I don't know. Do we want? We literally just did this with Josh Allen last week in a game where they were supposed to control the game, and we got him at super low ownership with Diggs. Diggs is 6,800 in this spot. I guess I have some contrarian interest in the Buffalo side of this game. I'm just not really sure who I'd want to bring it back with on the New England side. It seems really gross, but there might be a decent amount of value here. I'm just not quite sure which weapon I'd want on the New England side yet.
Yeah, I know. I'm with you. I'm looking at Cam here, relative to that ownership and price. I mean, it's looking pretty tasty. I can already see into the future, and Leone is going to try to talk us in to Cam Newton by Saturday evening. You can bank on that. What about here on the Buffalo side? It looks like they will get John Brown back. He's been practicing in full, so that should, push Gabriel Davis out of relevance. Once again, Cole Beasley was the guy who had the big game last week in the slot. Last week, just so tilting for me. I had Josh Allen double stacks that didn't have Cole Beasley, and I had Deshaun Watson double stacks that didn't have Randall Cobb. Just like getting cucked by these slot wide receivers. What a way to go. Anyways, LaMarca, you got any love for going back to Diggs and these Josh Allen double stacks?
That's the first time Cole Beasley has cucked anything.
What are you talking about? He's a hip hop artist who can dunk. I bet he's cucking people out there left and right.
I think Stephon Diggs is too cheap at 6,800. This Patriots defense has plummeted this year. They were first in DVOA in 2019. They're 25th in 2020. They had a bunch of people hold out due to COVID concerns, but this team is just terrible. I get wanting to buy low on Cam and some of these dirt cheap Patriots weapons, but Cam Newton can't throw the ball right now. They didn't list him on the injury report for that game, but like just watching him, you can tell that this is not the same player that was suiting up for them early in the year. I don't know if he's still recovering from COVID. I don't know if maybe his shoulder has acted up or something else, but I just can't play anyone on the Patriots until Cam Newton shows me something. Maybe that makes me a square because I'm going to be a week late on the Patriots, but I just don't want to burn any more money playing a quarterback that can't move.
Yeah. I'm willing to go back to the Diggs and John Brownwell for sure. Also, their rushing attack has been really inefficient. Zach Moss has now wrestled this into a 50-50 timeshare, but neither of them are running well, and they're not, giving them the ball at the goal line either. So I think if you have the stomach to go back to the Josh Allen double stack, I love it. I just don't even know if you bring it back with anyone. I don't hate that Jacoby Myers call, Joe, because when he had filled in, he looks like their best wide receiver. And at that price, probably only needs to catch 6 or 7 balls in catch-up mode to really pay off. But yeah, this isn't the funnest game, but man, I do want to go back to Josh Allen.
I don't mind it. I think this game's kind of gross. Leone in the chat is already saying naked cam, so I guess that's going to be our fate this week. Tough scene.
There it is.
I'll be sure to tune into the Tilt space for that.
I should also not be running social media because I almost I almost sent out a naked cam plus Beasley cuck on the other side, but decided against it.
That sounds like your own personal fan fiction you write in your free time there, Joe.
Yeah.
All right, we got Tennessee at Cincinnati. They're 5.5-point road favorites, 53.5 over under. It's happening, guys. The big dog in the smash spot at heavy ownership. We fade him. He puts us in a body bag. We go on the air and everyone tells us we're fish for not playing him. It's a tale as old as time. LaMarca, tell me that the big dog isn't going to eat this weekend.
Oh boy. I think the big dog's hungry. I think he's ready to break out again. Cincinnati is just dreadful in terms of rush defense. The Sharps are just teeing off on Tennessee. They've gotten 68% of the bets, but 94% of the spread dollars. Like, that's why this line has jumped from 3.5 all the way to 6 in some spots. It might be a week where you got to eat the chalk with the big dog, guys.
Joe, do we have to eat the chalk? Do we at 8,000? I mean, the big dog, you got to take him out for a nice dinner. I mean, you have to open up your wallet if you want the big dog to eat.
No, dude, like this doesn't change anything, man. Like we played him last week. It was a great play. He was 1% owned. That's how you play a guy like this that has this type of like fragile ceiling. Like literally every single time we play him in the right spot, he just gives us the floor game. Every time like, no, can't play Derrick Henry at that price. He's 30% owned. Great fade. Just puts it right down our throat. I think we just got to keep this thing rolling, man, because we're doing the right thing. I truly believe that we're doing the right thing here, Pete. Leone in the chat. Not a chance we're eating that chalk. I'm with him, man. It's going to be painful. I tossed out a very, I guess, sarcastic tweet, and people thought I was really serious last night when I was talking about just my mind being in an absolute pretzel. It is not in a pretzel. I'm not playing Derrick Henry this week.
Yeah, I'm definitely not playing him as a one-off. I feel like Dr. Seuss. Would I in a double stack bring back? Maybe if you want to play the Burrow double stack.
Hell yeah.
And then you play that script where Tennessee crushes on the ground and you build them. Burrow chucks it 60 times in garbage time. T. Higgins looks absolutely incredible. And then you pick if you want to roll out Dusty AJ Green or Tyler Boyd or hell, Drew Sample. So that's probably the only angle I will personally play Derrick Henry. But yeah, it's setting up like one of those classic weeks. Let's talk about some of the other plays here. I just mentioned some of the Bengals. I mean, AJ Brown, people were freaking out. He didn't practice today. I believe that's just regular Thursday maintenance that they have him doing. He's still a great play at 6,900, I think, at lower ownership. Probably good leverage too off of Derrick Henry. Anything else jumping out to you guys in this game?
Go ahead, LaMarca.
I don't think that Derrick Henry's going to be like monster chalk.
Oh.
You know, you've got Kamara, who's $200 more. You've got Kareem Hunt. We probably will have Jamal Williams again. We might have Gio Bernard again. Like, I don't think Henry approaches like 35%-ish. I think he's sub 30. And I'm fine with targeting him there. Like, yeah, he doesn't catch passes. You know what else he does? He runs for 200 yards and multiple touchdowns.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to happen. And we should also mention Joe Mixon not practicing. There's a chance that we get Gio Bernard again. Joe, is the thesis with the Jamal Williams play here similar at 5,800? Do you just go back to Gio if Hunt so why can't I talk? If Mixon is out.
Yeah, dude, I love like that cheaper range for some weird reason this week, and I'm never really down there. I think Miles Gaskin at that range is interesting too, but I like the Cincy side of this game a lot. I actually like a lot of this game. I'm not trying to just like piss on this entire game overall. I think that the Cincy side is super interesting, including Gio Bernard. I think that if you did want to kind of play the matchup, it is a tougher matchup in the slot for someone like Tyler Boyd. I love T. Higgins in this box. I think a lot of people are just going to take the savings with AJ Green. I think AJ Green is a reasonable volume play, all of those things, but it's possible that T. Higgins, like right in the middle in terms of salary, maybe he's a little bit overlooked in this spot where, yeah, maybe people end up just jamming in Gio and then maybe AJ Green for a little bit cheaper with Derrick Henry on the other side. I disagree with LaMarca, though. I think that a lot of people are going to play the big dog this week. 8K on FanDuel, he's like insanely expensive. He's 9,500 on FanDuel, but on DraftKings, I think a lot of people love playing Derrick Henry, man. It is just like the biggest joke ever.
The other thing too, and we saw this last week, like these slate dynamics can shift, very quickly. And if we do lose Mixon and Jones again, and people are, saving money with Bernard and Jamal Williams, say people come around on one of these punt play wide receivers at 3,000, like Derrick Henry, I think Derrick Henry and Adams will be like the luxury spend up buys that people will want to play. So I think it's something to monitor. One thing we've talked about it, how much these ownership dynamics literally shift by the day, by the hour as we inch up to lock. So I agree it's in a little precarious position now, but I think I lean with Joe that he's going to catch steam here as the weekend goes on. Let's move on to this next game. We have Cleveland hosting Las Vegas here. Cleveland 2.5-point home favorites coming off of that big win. They are over under here of 51. Where are the sharps betting this one, LaMarca?
Yeah, Raiders are a big public dog this week. Public and sharp, it appears, at least at the moment. They're getting 58% of the bet tickets, 75% of the dollars. That's dropped this line from 3.5 to 2.5. So we talk all the time about how 3 is probably the most important number in NFL betting. More games end on 3 than any other number. So moving through 3 is a big deal. So it appears like Las Vegas here is the preferred side, but I'm pretty intrigued by Cleveland in general here this week.
Joe, what are you seeing with this game?
Just play Kareem Hunt, I think. I think that's the side I'm on at least. He's got a really nice price tag of 6,900. Thank you very much. I do think that just in general, though, probably the last time we get him as like a true like bell cow back, obviously getting Chubb back probably after the bye here limits his ceiling a little bit. I'll say this, Hunt hasn't been as good with this opportunity as we've kind of seen in the past. So one thing that I think is interesting is like these running backs that come from basically this Andy Reid offense that just really benefits these really, pass catching running backs, gets them into space. All of these like really high efficiency backs kind of come out of that backfield and then they move on. And some of them don't have as much success. So I do think that overall I'm on board with the Kareem Hunt chalk just because I think the volume is going to be there for his price tag in this spot. Overall, I think it's a really good spot for this offensive line versus the incoming D line. Just a pretty big mismatch overall. So Kareem Hunt is going to be able to have some success, but I guess I have some qualms overall with him being like this smash play, over the last few weeks. Do you have any concerns overall with Kareem Hunt, Pete?
Not a ton. I mean, he had a 90% snap share last week and he ran routes on a season high 76% of dropbacks, which is what we want from him, is that, workhorse role where he's catching passes. So I think he's good to go. And Odell, leaving the offense, you got to think that maybe funnels a couple more touches his way as well. Speaking of Odell out of the offense, I mean, Rashard Higgins really balled out in relief of him in that game. Now he's only 4,200. I bet he catches a little bit of ownership, but I don't think he's like a sexy play that everyone is going to gravitate to. I guess he's like right in that Traquan Smith range from last week as well. And then you got to assume Jarvis Landry at 5,600, also inheriting a few more targets than usual. Any of these ancillary Browns pieces interesting to you guys?
Since I've been playing the role of the square today, in terms of DFS, I will continue to just throw square takes out there. And I I'm starting to think that OBJ being out might be a good thing for the Browns.
Kind of with you on this one, man.
I have like vehemently defended this guy. I'm a New Yorker, so all the Giants fans that are like, oh, you can't win with this guy. He's a loser, blah, blah, blah. I was like, the dude is one of the best receivers in the league, and you gave him away for nothing. But it's just starting to not feel like a coincidence. When was Mayfield at his best? During his rookie season. And he has really struggled since they brought OBJ in. Now he leaves the last game, and Baker goes from 0 for 5 with a pick to finish 22 for 23 with 5 touchdowns. Like, I may be on the Baker Express. I don't know if this is the great week for it, because I do think that the Browns can pretty much just run the ball down the Raiders' throat. Everybody else has been able to do that this year. So the volume might not be there, but like long term, I think it might be time to start investing in some Baker Mayfield futures again.
There you go. There you go. One other interesting thing here. Josh Jacobs coming off an awful game, only played 48% of the snaps. He's reasonably priced at 6,200. The early ownership projections I'm seeing have him being fairly chalky, which, like, if you're going to give me a recency bias discount on Josh Jacobs, I might be interested in it, but I'm not playing chalky Josh Jacobs based on his role right now, where Booker and Jalen Richard are stealing touches left and right. And I know that was a fluky game last week with the turnovers and stuff, but his role is not solidified in the way you'd want it to be. Darren Waller, I think, is also going to be very, very popular at tight end at 5,600. So one kind of leverage play that I'm starting to like as we talk it through is Henry Ruggs here at 4,900, season high in snaps and routes last week. And he's getting deep targets, 3 targets over 20 yards in the past 2 games. Those stats complement of our buddy Ben Gretch over at Stealing Signals. So Henry Ruggs could be a sick boom bust leverage play on some of this Raiders chalk.
Man, I love the Ruggs call too. Cleveland 5th most deep completions allowed this year. So again, yeah, he's definitely kind of a boom bust. Has one game this year with 60 plus yards, but he is getting those deeper targets. I love the Ruggs call. That was the guy that I was going to bring up also. I don't think that I'm going to be on the Josh Jacobs train at 6,200, especially if you're not going to get that ownership discount like Pete said. At that range, I'm probably just going to play Jamal Williams or try and just get up to Kareem Hunt. It's really not that much more expensive, so I don't think the leverage is really worth it.
Yeah, and if you want to play Kareem Hunt and eat that chalk, I think Ruggs is a great way to correlate with him and get a leverage play. So I definitely think there's some interesting things in that game. Boy, we have an interesting game here. Kansas City, 19.5 home favorites versus the New York Jets. I was trying, LaMarca, you're my betting trends guy. I've been trying to like push this narrative because I feel like I stumbled on a trend. Tell me, is it crazy for a spread to be larger than a team's implied team total like that is? I feel like how often does that happen for the Jets where they're projected for less points than the spread? I mean, that's wild.
It can't be very often. I don't have the definitive answer for you. Here's what I can tell you. There have been 12 games since 2004 with a spread of at least 17.5. And the underdogs in those contests have gone 9-3 against the spread. So, am I taking the Jets this week? Absolutely not. They cashed tickets for the Sharps last week, and for the record, the Sharps are going right back to the well with them. But again, like I mentioned with Buffalo, I think that the Jets benefited in so many different ways last week. They gave up 425 yards.
Don't be a square, LaMarca.
18 points.
Don't be a square. We're taking the points.
Nope, I'm taking the Chiefs.
Oh, you're a square.
You're having an off show, LaMarca.
It's a bad show for LaMarca.
You know what? Sometimes the squares win, boys.
We know
that is true. Last week was Exhibit A.
The only thing is Dieter on our Tuesday show, Dieter Kurtenbach, who is somewhat plugged in. You know, he's a beat writer for the 49ers. He knows beat writers. He says that Mahomes could end up sitting in this game, if not from the start, then very early.
From the start,
load management, Pete. Like he literally heard from like multiple sources earlier in the week that it was something they were considering, just like not playing. Literally, like load management, Kawhi central, just Mahomes, just chilling. That they don't need him to beat the Jets. They decided. I think it's like kind of funny, but like I don't know. Like I would not be surprised if he played like a preseason, like came out for two, like basically 2 drives, out of there. See you later. Kelsey 2 TDs. Have a good time.
Look at that. Dieter with these boots on the ground, they're projected to win so much that they're not even going to play Mahomes at the start. Wow, what a take! That if that's the take, then we got to take Jets with the points. We got to.
Sharp.
So I actually am interested in this game from DFS. It feels like martingaling trying to play the Bills versus the Jets last week, and it just being Tyler Bass season where he kicked 7 field goals. God help me, how did that happen? But however, we're getting some Chiefs guys at lower prices, lower ownership. And man, I like Denzel Mims. I like this rookie stepped into an immediate target share here. Joe, am I going to be able to talk you in to some Jets pieces in the bring back?
I'm with you on Mims, man. 3,200. He ran around on 80% of dropbacks last week. I am kind of in on investing on these rookies like before they start to go off a little bit. Like we know that Crowder's going to be out. He was never even close to playing last week anyway with that injury. So I'm in on Mims, mostly because Harmon gave me permission to play him, said he's actually a good player. So it's not a situation where you have like Jeff Smith where we know he's just like not a very good player, leaving all those air yards on the field. Maybe it is Jeff Smith week. That'd be tough. But I do like Mims on the other side of these KC stacks because he's just having that, I guess, great game script. If it is Mahomes back there, if it isn't Mahomes back there, I think there's still going to be a lot of passing on the Jets side. So I like Mims, 3,200. I think he's one of the better options as far as like the really cheap guys this week. I prefer him, I think, to what's the Colts wide receiver, Marcus Johnson. I think I prefer Mims to Marcus Johnson. I don't know if that's a take or not, but that's kind of where I'm at.
No, I'm with you on that one.
The Jets have scored 10 points the past 2 weeks combined.
Let me give you the hard sell.
And last week was against the Bills, who are not good defensively.
Hey, who cares? Let me give you the hard sell on this guy, Denzel Mims, okay? This dude, he's 6'3". He runs a 4.38. He has a 6.63 cone, okay? He's a highly drafted guy. He steps into, after not playing all season, into this bad environment, immediate 79% snap share, 7 targets, 32% target share. I mean, that is a bullish signal for a talented athletic guy. And on top of it, Brashad Perriman is not practicing this week. So he's going to have all the targets he can eat on the outside. Even if Crowder comes back, I actually think that's better. It's better for the offense. We want them to move the ball, take away some attention. They're going to be in garbage time. Mims at 3,200. I want it, guys. I want it.
Do we like the Darnold stacks? Someone in the chat, KK10, my man, was saying Sam Darnold stacks against KC's second team defense. Are we going to get like some run against the second team D for KC? All these people that paid 4,500 for Kansas City D going to be upset?
What has it come to with the Jets? We're talking about this like it's a preseason slate.
You are a square. You are a square. We are taking the points, and Denzel Mims is going to get a backdoor cover on a bomb as the clock runs out. That's how it's going down, LaMarca. We're having too much fun tonight because we are way behind on schedule here. Let's move on to this, probably the game of the week for a real life perspective. Baltimore hosting Pittsburgh, 4-point favorites, 46.5. Over under. Baltimore coming off of the bye. Who are the sharps betting here? And LaMarca, someone in the chat wanted you to know or share how you know who these sharps are on. I just always assumed that you had hacked into their betting accounts, but maybe you know some other way.
How does he do it?
I have no sources. This is all information that you can subscribe to. Don't think of me as like some plugged in Vegas insider. That is not me. I am just a guy with a computer. This is a game where the spread movement doesn't really match the betting numbers so far, which is always confusing to me, right? So 62% of the bets, 78% of the money on the spread have landed on the Steelers. That said, this line has moved from Ravens -3.5 to Ravens -4. And I love the Ravens this week. I think that this is a prime buy low spot for them. John Harbaugh, excuse me, I always confuse them. Elite head coach coming off of a bye throughout his career, 8-3 against the spread in that situation. We know that Ben Roethlisberger plays worse on the road. We haven't seen that like smackdown game yet from the Ravens this season. And I think that this could be the week where it happens.
I like it. Joe, we in the chat, we had an early consensus. We were all feeling the Steelers side from a DFS perspective. One Mr. Chase Claypool, who everyone seems to have forgotten about just because he had one bad game, but he's still playing the same amount of routes. What are your thoughts on Pittsburgh here for fantasy?
Yeah, I think you and Leone are kind of rubbing off on me a little bit because I'm just staring at Deontay Johnson, 15 targets last week. I'm just like, that's all right. I'm just gonna go play the other guys. So I think that Chase Claypool, like you said, is gonna be extremely overlooked. I like the idea of going to Eric Ebron. Eric Ebron's 3,900 in this spot, so I think that you could get some really low owned options in the Pittsburgh side of this game. I think this Baltimore defense is good, but I don't think it's elite like we've seen before. So I'm actually entertained, I guess, by the idea of not playing Deontay, because like we talk about narratives, Pete. How about the narrative that everyone's like, oh, Deontay Johnson's on the field, he's the number one, Big Ben, all he has eyes for is Deontay Johnson. I don't know. Is that actually the case? If it's going to be like an overreaction, which looks like the ownership so far that's coming in doesn't have Deontay being super high owned in the spot anyway. So maybe I'm kind of overthinking it, but I do agree with you on Claypool. I'll throw in Ebron though as well as another guy I'm looking at.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't a perfect comparable because in Carolina, they just have the two wide receivers, but like it doesn't matter who's the wide receiver one. I think we know this offense can support two of these guys going off each week. And we've seen earlier, Juju has been the odd man out. This past week, Claypool is the odd man out. And so if we know two of these guys can pop off, then I want to look at the four, including Ebron, who I agree with Joe is a nice play. He's in the air yards by low model, really cheap as well. And I want to play two of the lower owned guys of this cohort of four, knowing any of those four can go off for big games. So I'm not writing off anyone. I don't care who is the alpha, who is blah, blah, blah. Like all of these guys are talented and all of these guys can command targets and do a lot with them. So I'm excited about them.
Is there anyone on the Baltimore side that you guys are interested in? I'm struggling a little bit more there.
Dobbins.
Okay, let's hear it. So I will say Mark Ingram didn't practice today. I do think the 1-for-1 replacement is Gus Edwards, but sell me on J.K. Dobbins' role increasing. We do have another rookie coming off the bye.
There we go, baby. Square City. Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins basically split the snaps last week. Edwards was at 44%, Dobbins at 41%. I'm just buying the talent on Dobbins, and if I think that the Ravens can control this game, it's going to be with their rushing attack, right? Like, I don't think that Lamar Jackson is all of a sudden going to become a 300-yard passer again. I think that they're going to have to move the ball on the ground because that's how they move the ball. And J.K. Dobbins to me is the most interesting of this of the Ravens backfield.
Yeah, I agree. He's more interesting for sure. And I mean, we probably should mention, I mean, Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews talk about a concentrated, target tree. I guess Devin Duvernay's role has been increasing a little bit, but these are still the big dogs here. And we still, Joe, haven't had the quintessential pop-off game from Marquise Brown. We're going to get it one of these weeks. I really want to make sure I'm on it when it happens.
I like the Hollywood call. He's someone that I feel like hammered last year, and this year I've barely played at all. He's at 6,100, so I think that's a price tag a lot of people probably won't get to this week. He's not really projecting super well versus other guys in that really price range, so I think that he'd be the bring back for me. I'm not really on board with some of these rookies. You guys are, I guess, in terms of the running backs, they scare me a little bit more. So maybe I'm just a sick fish, and I should take more chances at running back than I do.
All right, we're gonna pick this up here. Rams at Miami, they're 3.5-point road favorites, 46 over under. Favorite bet or total here, LaMarca, if you're going to get your money down?
Dolphins, baby. I am all aboard the Tua Tagovailoa Express, and I love Brian Flores. Good coaches coming off of a bye historically cover. We've only had one example with Flores, but he is 1-0. And if you think that Flores is a good coach and you think that Tagovailoa is a good quarterback, there's no reason not to buy them coming off of, an extra week to prepare. So I'll take the Dolphins as home dogs.
I like that too. I do not know. I should say I don't like that because in the super contest we took the Rams, but I like your analysis. I like your thought process. And it's always hard to know if we're going against sharp LaMarca or square LaMarca. So we'll have to figure that out. I will say, Myles Gaskin, what does this man have to do to get a price increase on DraftKings? 5,200. The dude is a bell cow running back. He's going to come in around, I don't know, probably less than 10% owned at 5,200, maybe higher in the higher stake stuff. But Joe, I mean, Myles Gaskin, is this our guy again?
I mean, he's the best play in this game. I don't think it's close. I think that he's like right there with Jamal Williams, right there with Gio Bernard, except for he's a lot cheaper than both of those guys. So I'm in on that. I think there's an argument that with Tua in, maybe they just continue to run the ball even a little bit more. They've been running the ball relatively effectively. I think that it's kind of it's not the exact same thing, but like Robinson just never seems to see his price tag go up because he's a running back for Jacksonville. I think that like the running back for Miami, they never have like a super high team total or anything like that. So maybe DraftKings just like overlooks them in some ways. I have no idea. Like the price just looks bad relative to the targets and some of the guys he's around. Like he's literally, and if you're just looking at straight touches this week, he's priced around like the same basically, or sorry, he's priced completely terribly around guys like Josh Jacobs, James Conner, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Like, I mean, he's going to touch the ball as much or more than any of those guys, and he's like $1,000 cheaper at least. So I'm totally on board with that.
LaMarca, who's your favorite play on the Rams?
Henderson. The only reason I was slightly hesitant about picking the Dolphins this week is because the Rams have the best offensive line in the league, and the Dolphins haven't been very good against the run this year. I do think that the Dolphins defense has improved since they've gotten healthier, but most of that improvement has come against the pass. There's definitely a scenario where the Rams just control this game on the ground, and Henderson figures to be the biggest beneficiary of that.
Yeah, I agree. I think Henderson is a good play. He also got a little bit more work in the receiving game last week against the Bears, which is a nice little indicator there with his routes ticking up to 49% of dropbacks and getting all those valuable touches in the green zone. So yeah, I like the Henderson call. I also think Cooper Kupp is interesting from a ceiling perspective. He was in the air yards by low model, another guy who feels like he's due for a big game. And that's what's nice about the buy low model. It helps us put a little bit of a data behind the he's due play. So let's move on to this next game here. We have now in the 4 p.m. slate. We can do this one quick because this isn't that fun of a game. We have Chicago hosting the Saints. This is a 43.5 over under. New Orleans 4.5 point road favorites. What's the bet here, LaMarca?
I think this game is kind of a stay away from me, but it looks like Chicago might be the play. The spread keeps going up. Who knows what's going to happen with the New Orleans pass catchers? You know, like Thomas is hurt. Sanders is still on COVID. Even the guy who came in and was like their hero in the first half last week is now battling an injury, Marquez Callaway. So unless you think that Kamara is going to just destroy the Bears, who have been a great defense all year, I think that the Saints could struggle a bit to move the ball offensively.
Joe, favorite DFS play in this game, and you're not allowed to say Alvin Kamara.
Well, let me ask you this. What do you think Kamara's ownership is going to be like? Because he didn't like necessarily just like smash for people that played him last week.
Yeah, he's not going to be the, in high stakes, we're seeing him 70% owned. Like right. That's not going to happen. I think he'll be down more. I think him and Derrick Henry will split that top end ownership. Probably each come in around 30 to 35% in the higher stakes stuff, I would guess.
Okay, so maybe I'm wrong. I thought he may be a little bit lower than that. So yeah, if it's not going to be Kamara, what about going back to the Callaway well here? He had 10 targets last week. He's still 3,400. So I think that he's another guy that we could look to on the cheap. It seems like there's a lot of cheap wide receivers this week. Am I crazy? It seems like there's a ton of guys down there that are playable.
Yeah, and I mean, Allen Robinson's in the concussion protocol right now. And yeah, you're right. Darnell Mooney, 155 air yards last week, third most in week 7. So yeah, there's some punt play options here if you want to get gross. But man, this is I could maybe see myself having a cheap one-off, maybe playing Alvin Kamara if the ownership isn't too out of control. But I am not excited about this game.
With you.
Let's move on because we're not excited. Let's move on to a game that actually should be pretty hot. And this is Seattle hosting San Francisco. We know Seattle is the embodiment of lighter fluid on fantasy scoring for whoever they play. Can Jimmy Garoppolo get right versus Seattle here? LaMarca, we have their 3-point home favorites, 54 over under, the highest on this main slate. LaMarca.
We might have lost him.
Did we lose him?
Maybe. Anyways, I love this game, Pete. I think this is one of the ones that we were considering stacking up at one point this week, right? So I think that if we were to go to this game. I think like probably the chalkiest play in this game is going to be Ayuk, correct? Just taking over kind of that Debo Samuel role. So I think that he's a guy that like he still seems like, does he feel a little bit expensive? I understand that he's going to give us a little bit with rushing as well, which is great. I think that I don't know. I just, he seems like with all of these like pretty decent, like cheaper wide receiver plays, it's hard to kind of just, I guess, mentally get up to that price tag for Ayuk. So are you there with that? I know that you like this game a little bit more than I think a lot of people I've talked to this week so far.
Ayuk is tricky because when Debo was playing, they're manufacturing touches for Debo around the line of scrimmage, and they're using Ayuk as more of the downfield receiver, which has made his production more volatile. Last week, it kind of hit, right? He had the 7 targets, 6 catches, 115 yards, 105 air yards. So now you wonder, with Debo out, did they slide Kendrick Bourne into that downfield role and then have Ayuk playing closer to the line of scrimmage, which is good for his touch count, but I don't know about his ceiling. You basically need him to take one of these end arounds to the house, which him and Debo are known to do. But I'm with you. I'm skeptical of Brandon Ayuk at chalk. And it's one that I want to see it develop because I do like Kendrick Bourne at 3,500 there. Seattle, just getting roasted on the outside just week after week. So I love that there. And who needs anyone to talk them into a Russ Wilson double stack to DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett?
I guess so. If we don't have Carson this game, I believe he's not playing. Is that confirmed already?
So they're actually leaving a candle open on for him. They're saying he's a game time decision. I think it's highly unlikely he plays. The more interesting thing is what's going on with Carlos Hyde and DJ Dallas. And I'll admit, I was looking 3 or 4 hours ago on practice reports on Seattle. I couldn't find anything. Does anyone know if Carlos Hyde practiced today?
We'll have to ask the chat. I don't know if we have LaMarca. So LaMarca, clap 4 times if you're here.
He's back. Okay,
sorry.
He's back.
Okay, cool. I was just making an emergency overlay in case we lost LaMarca. Yeah, you heard anything so far on that, LaMarca?
I'm not seeing any Thursday practice notes uploaded for Seattle yet. But yeah, he was a DNP on Wednesday. That's the last thing that we have official from them. This is such a weird game, right? Like you look at this spread and my first thought was, how in the world are the Seahawks only favored by 3 points? I know they lost last week and I know that San Francisco has won 2 straight, but Seattle has just been so much more impressive than the 49ers over the duration of the season. So again, maybe this is me falling for a trap, but I'm taking Seattle. I feel that they should have won last week. They were up 10 with like 3 minutes and change left before they went offsides during a field goal attempt, which ultimately closed the gap and led to overtime. I think Seattle is just very, very good. And I agree that as far as the DFS side, like there's probably not going to be a better buy low spot for DK Metcalf all season.
Yeah. It just doesn't matter for DK Metcalf. Matchups don't matter. Nothing matters when you're DK Metcalf. It really does not. So if you're going to get him at low ownership because he's expensive and coming off of a dud, then he's a massive smash. Not to mention he lost that touchdown due to a penalty too. So if that hits, his ownership is probably 10 percentage points higher than what it will settle at. So buy that discount. And we got KK10 in the chat confirming that Hyde didn't practice today. This is interesting to me because Pete Carroll comes out and says, yeah, he has this minor, hamstring strain, but it's minor. He'll be fine. But then he continues not to practice. So tomorrow will be a big make or break practice. If he does not go, Carson didn't practice, Travis Homer doesn't practice, that means it's DJ Dallas on the 1s and 2s in this game at 4,400. Love me some DJ Dallas here if it shakes out this way. All right, let's move on. We have the other 4 p.m. game here. We got the Chargers at Denver. They're 3-point road favorites, 44.5 over under. Thorman thought this could be a sneaky pace up spot. LaMarca, what do you like on the betting side?
The big thing for me here is just we have to kind of monitor the status for the Chargers offensive line. They have 2 guys in Trey Turner and Brian Bulaga who did not practice early in the week or were limited. Those guys were out last week. It didn't really matter so much versus Jacksonville, but Denver is 3rd in adjusted sack rate this season. So if those guys are out, I think that Denver could keep this game close just by virtue of putting Justin Herbert under a lot of pressure. But if those guys are active, I think that the Chargers are a really nice option. Denver isn't very good on the pass blocking side either. And they just got Melvin Ingram back last week, did the Chargers. So Justin Herbert's the real deal. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't find success here as long as they can block for him.
Yeah, Joe, I mean, Herbert just looks so good. I mean, he's uncorking the deep ball. He's rushing. He's feeding Keenan Allen and Hunter Henry. I mean, he's everything. He's everything you want
Everything
in a
you want
human.
more.
He's everything you want in a man, in a partner, in a lover, in a fantasy football quarterback. Sorry, I'm getting very loopy here. I haven't even been drinking tonight. But any other takes on this game?
Yeah, I mean, Herbert's kind of expensive now, so he's all the way up to 6,900. So he's definitely more expensive than we've seen him be kind of in the last couple of weeks. I don't have any interest in one running back in this game. I don't know if you guys feel differently, but I still think Keenan Allen's reasonable. I'm interested in going back to the well with Hunter Henry. 4,200 just seems way too cheap for him. I think he's probably one of my favorite plays in this game overall. Noah Fant just didn't look right on the other side. So I guess if you were to stack up the Chargers side of this game, I would struggle a little bit to try and find an option on the Denver side. Do you have anyone that you like in particular on the Denver side of the ball, LaMarca?
Oh, I know who I like, and I know who Pete likes. Big Al.
No.
Boom.
Oh.
The boom man.
Here comes Square LaMarca. Fant practice in full today. He did. Albert looked great, but I think it's been more of a byproduct of Noah Fant getting back to full health. I do like the tight end call. I just think it's Noah Fant time now that he's fully healthy.
Yeah, that might be fair. It's not like he played a ton of snaps last week anyway. He was at below 50%, but he's clearly a guy that they're trying to get the ball to when he's on the field.
Yeah. I'm with you guys though. The bringbacks are tough here. And, Keenan Allen is underpriced relative to his role, but I think in turn, he's going to be very chalky. So if you're playing Keenan Allen, you're probably going to I probably will only play him in like a game stack with Herbert, just at that ownership. This is a weird game and where I could see it being up tempo and a lot of points, but I don't love a ton of the plays. I guess we also have Justin Jackson and Joshua Kelly down in here in this 4,900 range. They're in a pretty even split, but they're both also splitting the high value touches. So I can talk myself into a path to upside for either of these guys. Joe, I'm guessing you don't mess around with these guys.
That's pretty much it for me, man. I don't think there's really anything else in this game that I'm super interested in. Do we want to touch on our fearless leader, Chris Neville's team in the 5K queue for Tuesday or
let's
for Thursday
do it.
night?
Yeah, let's we'll wrap up with this. I'm
not going to bring it up yet. Who is Chris's captain in the 5K queue this week? I'll start with you, Pete.
So Chris, he doesn't normally do the chalky captain, so I don't think he's going to have Mike Davis. But he likes to do a little gal brain, but not too. I will say he captained Robbie Anderson.
Negative. LaMarca?
Teddy Bridgewater.
It is indeed.
He always captains a running back, right?
It is indeed Mike Davis. So when Mike Davis captained, 61.5% owned in the 5K queue as the captain, 100% owned across the board in this contest. Wow, Teddy Bridgewater only 7% captain in this one, so that's interesting. His lowest owned play looks like the kicker for Atlanta, and still he was 30%. So not much of a contrarian team for Chris today. So maybe he'll get some luck here and the chalk will go crazy. But thoughts on this team? Davis, Bridgewater, Moore, Samuel brings it back with Todd Gurley and the kicker correlation with Koo. Interesting.
I like it. I'm watching Mike Davis just absolutely ball out here early, making defenders miss.
He literally just vaulted up to third place. We got a rushing touchdown for Samuel.
Oh my God. Wow. Another Curtis Samuel TD. He is the vulture. He is the vulture.
My God.
That's it for me. I'm done.
Wow. That's pretty gross.
We have a Curtis Samuel captain in the queue. Good game.
GG. No, it's a long game. Keep your heads up, guys. They had us in the first half, but we'll get them in the second half. Guys, fun show as always. We didn't get to hit on the island games, but just trust your heart, trust your gut. Whatever LaMarca says, do the opposite and you'll be good to go. Just kidding. LaMarca's crushing it. He's got his betting article. Check out their video they did with Dieter too, going through all the betting angles. We will, of course, be back on Sunday morning with the pre-kickoff show with Dieter, Joe, and myself, and then the Sunday finale, the tilt space, the beverages, the tilting, the sweating, the getting told we're donkeys for not playing Derrick Henry, all of that good stuff. If you guys would like to listen to this in audio form, you can subscribe to the Line Movement NFL show on iTunes and your podcast apps of choice. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that yet. Turn on the like button. Hit us in the comments with your Galaxy Brain play of the week. For Matt LaMarca, for Joel Holka, I'm Peter Overzet. We'll see you guys on Sunday.